This is past tense, part 3, AR verbs and the preterite. And again, if you've not yet watched past tense parts 1 and 2, I'd recommend you do that before you watch this clip, just to help you out. In this clip, I'm going to focus on AR verbs like hablar, bailar, cantar in the preterite. Now remember, preterite means it was done one time in the past. I'm going to say each form of the verb in Spanish, then English and clap, and I'd like you guys to repeat it with me. Ready? Yo hablé, I spoke. Yo hablé, I spoke. Tú hablaste, you spoke. Tú hablaste, you spoke. Él habló, he spoke. Él habló, he spoke. Nosotros hablamos, we spoke. Nosotros hablamos, we spoke. Ellos hablaron, they spoke. Excuse me. Ellos hablaron, they spoke. Now, I have other clips where I deal with all 5 forms in the preterite. On this clip, I just want to focus on the yo form, hablé, and the he form, él habló. Notice, yo hablé ends in one letter, and it means I spoke one time. Él habló, you chop off the AR, add one letter, O, and it means he spoke one time. Again, hablé ends in one letter, and it means I spoke one time, and habló ends in one letter, and it means he spoke one time. That's kind of the whole point of this clip. That's what I'm getting at right there. Now here's a chant to help you guys keep this straight. If it ends in an E, it was done by me once with an accent. If it ends with an O, it was done by Joe once with an accent. If it ends in an E, it was done by me once with an accent. If it ends in an O, it was done by Joe once with an accent. Now, Mr. What are you talking about? One letter, one time. One letter, one time. Think back to imperfect. Remember when we talked about Fred Flintstone, the imperfect past? We said, yo hablaba meant I spoke lots of times. So yo hablaba ends in lots of letters, ABA, and it means I spoke lots of times. El hablaba ends in lots of letters, ABA, and it means he spoke lots of times. So, if you say I spoke, you chop off the AR and you add one letter, it means I spoke one time. If you say he spoke, you chop off the AR and you add one letter, it means he spoke one time. Let me give you an example. If I say to you, hey, when I was little, I spoke to the president. Well, you don't know if I spoke to him once or lots of times. Well, if I say I spoke to the president and it ends in one letter, you know that when I was little, I spoke to the president one time. But if I say yo hablaba con el presidente, I spoke with the president and it ends in lots of letters, it's much more impressive. It means I spoke with the president lots of times. Now that's the purpose of the next clip. In past tense part 4, I'm going to talk about the difference between preterite and imperfect for translation and clarification. But in this clip, I wanted to give you one verb, the verb hablar, and get you to start thinking about what's the difference between hablé with one letter and hablaba with lots of letters. And again, hablé with one letter means I spoke one time. Hablaba with lots of letters means I spoke lots of times. Hopefully you're starting to understand the difference between preterite and imperfect forms of the verb. This has been past tense part 3 AR verbs, preterite.